The Truth Girls.
Hi everyone, it's Sonia here, stopping to give you my view on the whole Greta Thunberg issue. So Greta was here in my hometown of Montreal a little while ago, and there was a huge demonstration. There was like 500,000 people in the streets. You know, everyone is saying we want things to be green, save the planet, save the environment. Some people reacted not so favorably to this, and I just want to discuss a little bit some of the issues that came up. One, that she is being like made to do this, that she's being like pushed up to the forefront to do this, and two, you know, how do I feel about the whole environmental issue and what she's doing to our children. So first of all, the girl's an Aspie. So being an Aspie myself, knowing how Aspies are, I really don't think anyone's making her do this. The way Aspies are, myself included, usually is that we have very intense special interests, and it's like our whole existence revolves around these interests. So this is what I think. Greta has a very special interest in something scientific, which is climate change, and nothing and no one is going to stop her from learning as much as she can and telling everyone about it very passionately. And, you know, because she's a child, people responded to her maybe more than they would have responded to some middle-aged dude. And a lot of people are, you know, obviously really impressed with her. And I think also a lot of kids respond to her because she's a kid. So there was this Greta Thunberg phenomenon, and, you know, how much publicity and celebrity she's gotten. Do groups that want to push climate change related changes, agendas, do they use her? Of course they do. I mean, in the sense that they will use what pull and power and money they have to give her opportunities to be a spokesperson for their cause. As far as they're concerned, she makes a great spokesperson. They do, but I don't think it's like a conspiracy where they like took this child and made her do something. You know why? Because here's another thing about Aspies. It's really hard to make us do anything we don't want to do. Myself included, we tend to be just very true to ourselves and our interests. And it's very hard to take an Aspie and make them lie, you know, or make them promote an agenda, you know, for your benefit when they're not on board with it. I mean, Aspies are kind of just like true to the cause. Whatever their cause is, that's what they do. It's hard to just manipulate them into doing something else, because it's like it goes against our nature. So I imagine that for Greta, if she wasn't like super into this and wanting to do all of this, she probably wouldn't be doing it. It's not like the Disney kids where they want celebrity, so they'll do stuff to get that. But she's not like that. Her purpose is purely because she believes in what she's talking about, and she wants everyone to know how important this is, which is totally an Aspie thing to do. Well, here's the other part. Couple things. Where do I stand on this whole pollution and climate change stuff, and on how she's affecting our kids? Because not all of it's good. Where do I stand? Of course, I care a lot about the environment. I've been recycling since long before it was trendy. I'm talking like probably at least 20 years. I was doing all that ages ago. I was like the only person I knew who would really separate all the garbage and try to reduce as much as I could, reuse, recycle. I was doing that since like forever. No, not 20 years, more than that. I remember when I was still living with my parents, like in the 90s. And having all this recycling in bags in my apartment because it was so important to me to do that. So, you know, I've been very aware for a long time. My parents even were very eco-conscious. My mother used to compost everything. You know, this goes way back. So I'm really on board with taking good care of the planet. Pollution is a real thing. It's a real problem. And I think we should all be doing everything we can to reduce it. But there's a thing, which is that I think most of that burden has to do with corporate practices. The only thing we can do about that is demand things change. But the way that things are set up, we're in a situation where we're disempowered with, not all of us, but the ones of us who don't have a lot of money, a little bit disempowered in terms of voting with our dollar, because we have to survive and we'll buy what's cheapest because we kind of have to sometimes. And what's cheapest is often not what's best for the environment. When you buy products, you know, do you shop at Walmart? Do you buy things that are not going to last very long? Do you buy the cheap clothes because they're cheap and then they're no good after a little while? You know, sometimes that's what you do because you have to. Or at least you do what you can, but you can't always do the best. I really do believe that pollution is a huge problem, has a lot to do with corporate practices. Number one. Number two, though, climate change. I hope YouTube doesn't, give me the axe for saying this, but personally, I don't really believe that climate change is all man-made. I do believe that when you heavily pollute an ecosystem, you do change the environment. If you put enough pollution in an area, you can totally disrupt an ecosystem. And the ecosystems work together on all levels, including the way the ocean affects the air currents, and this can affect the climate. So yes, if you destroy an area and you destroy that ecosystem, it can have repercussions, in other areas. But I believe that there is like a balance built in. I don't think God made this planet such a way that if really a relatively small part of the ecosystem is disrupted, that it's going to wipe out all life on the planet. I mean, this whole thing about carbon, I still don't understand why people think that carbon is causing global warming. Two problems right there. First of all, plants use carbon. You all know that. They take the carbon to make oxygen. The more carbon, the more the plants grow. So you want to green the planet, you should have lots of carbon. Two, why are we talking about global warming? They've now changed it to climate change because it's not warming. So like that doesn't even make any sense. So carbon warms the planet, but the planet isn't warming, it's just changing. So why are you blaming the carbon, which is what the plants use anyway? Is the climate changing? Well, obviously it is. But is it all man-made? Who knows? But even if it is man-made, here's what I've noticed. That as one thing happens, something else seems to happen to counterbalance it. Talk about global warming, then you have a shift in the polar vortex, and we had some of the coldest temperatures on record in recent years. So it's like if one thing happens, God, in his infinite wisdom and his design of the universe, seems to do something else, or have something else built in that counterbalances it. Ice melts on the North Pole ice cap, and the ice cap on the South Pole grows. That's what's been happening. Well, we've been through climate change before. For whatever reason, we've had ice ages, we've had areas that were green that turned to desert, or were desert turned to green. Things have changed. Even it seems like the Earth has shifted on its axis quite a bit. And we did survive. Okay, but let's assume that we play a part in what the climate is doing. And we have to take responsibility to fix things. Here's a problem that I have. Greta Thunberg is addressing Canadians. We have 50 million Canadians. We're not the biggest culprit compared to something like India, 1 billion people. Their industries are a lot less regulated. There's a lot more emissions. China, 2 billion people, and the industries, yeah, pollution-wise, really not that regulated. So why are we focusing on Canadians or even Americans when the culprits of a lot of these pollution are not in North America? That's one problem that I have with this. I think the only solution, if you really want to address problems of pollution, you'd have to revamp the entire system. The countries that are really causing the pollution, they would have to change their ways. And there's a problem because it's these multinational corporations that make a lot of money that are then outsourcing their labor to those other countries or buying from there because it's cheaper. So what it comes down to is money. So what you'd have to do is convince rich people to take a pay cut. If you manage to implement stricter regulations on emissions in Canada and America, for manufacturing companies, all that's going to happen is they're going to move their operations somewhere else where they don't have those limitations and the associated costs. They're going to move their operations to Asia, South America, places like that, which would make it even worse because those places allow them to pollute even more. And the reason they could do that, move it over there, is because of free trade. So if you really want to address stuff like pollution, you have to address free trade. That's what I'm trying to say. Is Greta talking about free trade? Not that I know of. So the other thing was, I had friends calling me saying that they were really upset because their kids are being traumatized by Greta Thunberg's message, which is that we're all going to die in 10 years. This I really don't like because I've heard this before many times because I am quite old now. Not old, but old enough. And I've heard this. Okay, first of all, a lot of you remember global warming, and you remember the graph? It's like this, and then whoosh, goes way up. We were supposed to die because of global warming a long time ago. So yes, we're supposed to die from global warming. We're also supposed to die from AIDS. Remember that? It goes from one person to the next, and everyone they've been with, and before you know it, we all have AIDS. We're all dead, and that didn't happen. Oh, before global warming, it was the ozone layer. Remember that? The hole in the ozone layer, that was supposed to kill us. Didn't happen. And before that, it was we were going to die from a nuclear attack from Russia. Didn't happen. So I've kind of lived my entire life hearing that there was this one or other huge threat that was going to kill us, like within 10 years. And somehow I've managed to survive all the way to 48. So I don't really appreciate Greta telling the kids you're going to die in 10 years, because we've heard this all before. It's really not fair, because nobody can make those kind of predictions, apparently, because no one has been successful in the past. So that's like the big downside of all this, is how much she's scaring the kids. I mean, the big corporations should be held accountable, and we need to stop, destroying the environment, polluting everything. But that doesn't mean we have to scare the crap out of the kids. And let's not forget, it's not just about what's coming out of factories. It's like GMOs and Monsanto pesticides and things like that. And all the stuff that we use that is made to be disposable. Like, it's made to not last. It's planned obsolescence. And then we end up with tons of stuff in landfills because of it, because people make money. Because everything just craps out after a while. So this is the problem I have with it. I don't really think, we're making all the climate change. I mean, you can say I have a mental disorder for thinking that, but I really don't. Because the history shows it's happened before. But there's hope we could move towards clean energy. I mean, who wouldn't be on board with that? I'm on board. But I don't think it's right to scare the kids and make them think that, they're going to die. And that's it. Just want to let you know how I feel about it. Thanks for your support on Patreon. Thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.